And if you go anywhere with any lower working class community and start talking shit about welfare, you're going to get your ass kicked. I don't care if they're white or black or who the hell they are. This middle class bullshit ain't going to fly, and it's definitely not going to be the source of the revolutionary movement. That's going to come from the lower sections of the proletariat. And I got to tell these academics, these middle class Marxists, you need to go lower and deeper into the proletariat, because that is where the revolutionary potential is.
I mean, it's amazing to call this song a revolutionary anthem and not take any issue with it whatsoever. I mean, okay, it's one thing if you say, okay, it's largely positive, there's some issues with it, but overall it's good. That's one thing. I don't agree with that because I think there's an agenda behind it. But that's one thing if you're willing to like face reality somewhat and say, okay, I don't agree with everything. But these people, they're like full-throatedly endorsing it, no problem whatsoever. This is like the New International, you know. They're doing this, I think, because they want to get attention, so they could get more views, more clicks, more money. I think that's what it's about. It's a grift.
And they also like to say that, oh, only liberals are offended by this. There's working people that are pissed that this dude is attacking welfare. There's oppressed people that are pissed over this song. And when you go out and say this is the best song in the world, this is a revolutionary, you're alienating your section from a section of the working class. You don't understand the working class. You don't understand how beautiful and complex and diverse the working class is. And you're either immature or you're being conned by someone who's getting paid or with views and fan and what have you.
And this song is so working class. Where's the mention of unions? When right now in this country there's a huge potential upsurge with auto workers to go on strike. As everyone's probably seen, a new country song has gone viral called Richmond, North of Richmond. It's made a huge impact, and there's been a lot of debate about it within the left and more broadly within politics about the meaning and significance of the song. So today we're going to have a guest who has been a supporter of this channel for a long time, someone who I've been in contact with for a long time, an excellent anti-imperialist. You've probably seen his work. His name is Dust James. He has an excellent YouTube channel, and he runs a number of social media groups, Anti-Imperialist America, Working Class Revolt, and he's had me on his channel a number of times, so I'm very glad to have him on, because especially as an anti-imperialist in the South of the United States who knows a lot about country music and really appreciates country music, I think he's an excellent guest to have on, and welcome. And by the way, where are you? You're outside. Where are you right now, actually?
Welcome, brother. Thanks for having me on, man. Really love Flame of Liberation. It's a great channel. Anti-imperialist, one of the few out there. I'm actually downtown in a small town, my hometown in central North Carolina. It's the last concert of the summer before they renovate the small park downtown. So I'll catch you in between shows.
Yeah, so that's really cool you're out there, and I think that it emphasizes how you're someone who actually, this isn't the first that song that went viral. That's not your first country music song. You're very familiar with the genre, and I'm curious, what were your first thoughts about this song? Because I remember it sort of came out of nowhere, right? You saw people like posting about it, either like, oh, this is the best thing ever, it's a working class anthem, or people saying that it's a horrible thing, it's a dog whistle for racism and neo-confederate stuff. So when I first saw it, I was a little confused. I was like, okay, what's the deal with this? And when I first listened to it, I didn't quite catch all the lyrics. And so I was wondering, okay, this is interesting. Why is this getting so much attention? But then when I actually read and saw the lyrics and was able to see all the details of it, I started to see, okay, yeah, I mean, he does talk about, working class issues, but there's another underlying message within it, which is certainly counter to anything that anyone on the left or anti-imperialist or communist would advocate for. So I'm curious, what were how did you come across this song, and what were your initial thoughts about it?
Yeah, it was actually popularized by a small YouTube video channel, which is people who discover music around the West Virginia area, Radio West Virginia, which actually led to some confusion because everyone thought he was from West Virginia. He's actually from Farmville, Virginia, and it kind of came out later. But I saw the post, I messaged it, I actually shared it in my message group. If folks want to join my Facebook message group, Anti-Imperialist America, I shared it there, and this was like the second day of it going viral. It had got like 2 million views at this point. It later got 5 million views within 3 days. So I caught this within the first day or two of it starting to blow up. And I shared it and said, this is good. It's class conscious, but it's libertarian leaning and it's South centric, which was nice. I analyze a lot of country music. There's a lot of, like, I'm a huge fan of Sturgill Simpson, and Sturgill Simpson's an anti-war Navy veteran who called out Bush back in the hypocrisy. Also, a lot of people don't know that Steve Earle called out Bush back then. So did the Dixie Chicks. I've been following this since I was in high school. And actually, Sturgill Simpson, the anti-war Navy veteran, helped Tyler Childress get his start. And Tyler Childress is the progressive country icon of our era. You can't get lawn seats for less than $300 to see this guy because he's so popular amongst the people. People, normies, people I went to school with, they love Tyler Childress as well. And he's been around for years. And he made a song supporting Black Lives Matter. He recently made a song documented the struggles of gay coal miners. In Your Love, beautiful song, beautiful video. So, I mean, I analyze music. I love country music. And I saw this, okay, I messaged to the chat group. Okay, it's libertarian leaning, South-centric, good. Next thing I know, this group of academics out of the Midwest started calling it a revolutionary anthem and attacking anybody that had any criticism. And I'm like, what the hell, man? I mean, I knew, and then I responded more like, yeah, I called it South-centric to begin with, but it's an obvious neo-Confederate dog whistle. It's verging reactionary viewpoint. It's a strong right-wing point to blame those who are poor. And I actually listen to a lot of music that has right-wing politics, even neo-Confederate politics. And a lot of it has class struggle and at least a faux or a shallow kind of class outlook mixed in with it. Fascism itself has they called themselves the National Socialists. They appealed to the German working class. Like, reactionary messaging travels better when they put a little bit of the truth in it. And then after I messaged my group, okay, it's libertarian leaning, South-centric, it's South-centric. And then I noticed all these conservatives sharing it. I noticed overt neo-Confederates sharing it. And it became this whole mess on the left. And I think there's two wrong positions that I'm seeing. One of the wrong positions is that, oh, fuck this guy. He has no potential whatsoever. Cancel this guy. I think that's a wrong position. I mean, I looked into his history. He's of firm middle class background. Like, he has some humble origins with his grandparents in West Virginia. But I mean, the dude was a sales clerk at a construction office, which is firmly middle class. I mean, that's definitely a better class position than most truck drivers, and especially a better class position than most of the people who use those construction products and work in construction that tend to be Rasa and from oppressed nationalities that actually do the work, so someone at the sales desk can get paid a little bit more and not do as much manual labor. But at the same time, he's middle class. He ain't the rich, he ain't that. And he's had fascist propaganda, Fox News pipe down his throat. He is what he is. It ain't no revolutionary anthem, and it's not the most, and it ain't the source of racism in the United States right now. It's kind of middle ground. So I've been fighting with folks on kind of both sides of this.
I think that's an excellent point, and how you're pointing out that there's two mistaken views on this song. And I think some people may see this and think, why are you guys talking about this song? Who cares? It's just a song. But I think there's a deeper political question. I think you touched on it right there, is that there's two mistaken tendencies that we see with this song and with a lot of issues, actually, of a lot of issues recently, where you have this liberal position, which is typical position that we see, which is to demonize any and all working class people into, divide and conquer strategy. And then you have this right opportunist position with supposed communists who swallow this stuff whole. They swallow this stuff whole. They say it's a revolutionary anthem and all this stuff. Like you mentioned, these people, Midwest marks, who claim to be communists, who are fully endorsing this, saying that it's a revolutionary anthem. When you actually go into the song, you see what the agenda is. It lays the blame at people who are on welfare. Why would it do that? Furthermore, why would supposed communists, anyone on the left, socialists, communists, anti-imperialists, fully endorse that message? It makes no sense whatsoever. Why would you fully endorse that and claim that it's some revolutionary anthem? It makes no sense whatsoever. Now, some people will say, oh, well, can't we agree with the good parts and disagree with the bad parts? Well, I think you touched on a point that's very relevant for this, which is that the history of fascism and Nazism, the way that they push through this fake populism to serve the establishment and to serve the right, is they give a few crumbs to make it seem as though they're advocating for the working class. But that's just to push in the real agenda. And I'm not saying that this guy is a Nazi or anything like that. I'm not claiming that. But it's clear that this song is pushing a very particular agenda. I mean, it went viral. It got massive. Everyone saw it. It got pushed heavily by right-wing outlets and individuals for a reason. There's a reason why they did that. And they didn't do it because they care about the working class. They did it because it's pushing a certain agenda. And this is an old trick in the US where, especially the Republicans, will point the finger at people on welfare and this whole trope of the quote-unquote welfare queen as the source of problems for working class white people. It's just a ridiculous trick to try and get people who are working class to attack another section of poor people, working class people, rather than the establishment. So again, it's just completely ridiculous that anyone who claims to be a communist or a socialist is fully endorsing this message. I mean, it's this, again, I'm not saying this guy's a Nazi, obviously. I don't know much about him, but it's the same logic of if someone was in Germany in the 1930s and said, hey, this guy Hitler, I might not agree with him on everything, but I mean, he's against the media, he's against the banks, he's against the British Empire, he's against the US, he's against the Weimar government. Why can't we agree with him? At least he's anti-establishment. Maybe we could work with this guy against the establishment. I don't agree with him on everything, but why can't we work with him on the things we agree on? It's like, no, there's an agenda being pushed. And if you just greenlight that agenda, you're basically just a rubber stamp for the establishment and the right wing at this point. It's like, what are you adding to the conversation when you as a communist are just sitting there on the sidelines applauding? You don't give any analysis or criticism of his attacks on basically libertarian propaganda, the attack on other sections of the working class and the poor, that you as a communist are supposedly advocate for the working class and the poor. It makes no sense whatsoever. And I don't understand how these people think. They think that this is some strategy to win over rural workers and people who are on the conservative end. I mean, again, what do they add to the conversation by just applauding? They don't add anything to the conversation. Now, on the other end, the liberal tendency to just condemn everyone and everything, and maybe attack anyone who likes this song. That's completely wrong too, because you're not going to win over people with that. You're just going to push people to the right. I think the effective strategy is to say, yes, on one hand, he's raising working class grievances, but on the other hand, there's a nefarious agenda which isn't in your interests. It's not in your interest to attack people on welfare. It's not in your interest to play into this welfare queen trope. And in fact, it's not. The majority of people on welfare aren't even black. The majority of people on welfare are white. So it's like, if even someone who is uninformed and ignorant about all of this stuff, and is a poor working class white person, by trying to play into this racial dog whistle politics, it's actually not going to help them. It's actually going to harm them, because a lot of they themselves might be on welfare. Some of their relatives might be on welfare. So it just makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to hearing reactionary music. Like, I like positive ass. Like, I can listen to a reactionary song and be like, okay, that part's class conscious. I like that. That's and I see art as like, I'm not like looking at that person. I'm looking at like, this is a product of this society. What can I learn about the society I'm in based on this piece of media, this primary source, this real-time primary source? So I mean, I've been to shows that are with bands that are openly neo-confederate, and I'll be like, okay, that's not cool. Okay, that's not cool. This is the way he's being tricked to fight against his own class interest. Okay, that part's good, but at the same time, it's like, I never, I was just analyzing, and I wasn't like calling. I'm not going to say something that has so much bad and is obviously a tool. Regardless of how much sugar you put on a pill, is still a pill. They're trying to get you to swallow. And this dude I don't think he's a bad dude. I think he's a middle class dude. I think there's a difference between the lower section of the proletariat, who's more likely to have friends and family that are dependent on social programs, and then there's more of a middle class that's more likely to unfairly bear the tax burden compared to the rich. So I mean, they purposely set it up where they try to pin the middle class against the lower class. But when it comes down to it, as communist organizers, who are we going to organize, and who is going to be our emphasis? And historically, when communists had power, and when communists were in mass organizations, and communists led unions of millions of people in this country, they targeted the industrial workers. They targeted the homeless. They targeted people that were about to be evicted. That is the source of the communist power. And if you go anywhere with any lower working class community and start talking shit about welfare, you're going to get your ass kicked. I don't care if they're white or black or who the hell they are. This middle class bullshit ain't going to fly, and it's definitely not going to be the source of the revolutionary movement. That's going to come from the lower sections of the proletariat. And I got to tell these academics, these middle class Marxists, you need to go lower and deeper into the proletariat, because that is where the revolutionary potential is. And I'm not gonna play these games. And when anybody, regardless, if there's an unfair tax burden on the middle class, but if you then turn around and attack something that benefits the working class, where people would either eat or not eat based on whether they get food stamps, they're going to cut food stamps. Anybody trying to cut food stamps is a reactionary and an enemy, and is attacking the lower section of the working class. The lower section of the working class that is more predominantly oppressed people, black people and brown people, and masses of white people as well. But this ain't gonna fly. You got to stand up against the tools. I think within the population, within the middle class, within the working class, within human being itself, I think there's like an unlimited potential for either good or bad. The same people that could bring about socialism could bring about fascism. And I think this singer is right on the edge. He could kind of go one way or the other. Right now, he's leaning towards fascism. And I sent him a message. I know he's got 50,000 messages. I said, solidarity, brother. I hope you develop further and stop attacking those worse off. So I didn't cancel him, but at the same time, I told him straight how it's going to be and what we're going to tolerate, what not going to tolerate, if we're going to have principled unity.
I think that's said perfectly and very strongly. Again, I do not understand how anyone who claims to be a communist or whatever, left, anti-imperialist or whatever, is going to get behind attacks on, literal attacks on the working class and the poor of this country. It just makes no sense whatsoever. This is actually a tendency, and again, why we're doing this video, because it's not just this song. There's, as we're talking about, there's a deeper strategy here of what's going on with this song. It represents something bigger, and something I've noticed on the left over the past, it's been going on for some time, but I think especially since the Rage Against the War Machine and in the lead up to that, there's been a very clear and consistent grift going on of pandering to the right with these supposed anti-imperialist analysts who make a lot of money off of their online activities. They make a lot of money off of this. And so if you look at the messages that they're saying, and you realize that this doesn't make any sense from a ideological and political perspective, it actually makes a lot of sense from a financial perspective, because what they're doing is they're just trying to, it's not about reaching a new audience or winning over people in a new audience, winning over people outside of the echo chamber. That'd be great. You got to get out of the echo chamber. You got to reach out to people who aren't already agreeing with the political positions you have. But what they're doing is a clear pandering and selling out to the right and to the establishment for more views, for more clicks, and more money. I think it's very clear. I think it's very obvious what's going on here. And when someone claims to be a communist and fully endorses a song that, you know, everything you just laid out and what we've been talking about, these attacks on people on welfare, the poor, the working class, this is like basically just Reaganism and Clintonism. You know, it's like they like to call everyone a liberal and a neoliberal, but they don't know what the hell that even means, because they're literally supporting basically neoliberal propaganda. Clinton, the big time Democrat neoliberal, the biggest neoliberal of them all, what did he do? He attacked welfare. He cut welfare. What does this song do? It advocates for cutting the taxes and cutting welfare because it's, oh, these lazy people are supposedly mooching off of welfare, and us hardworking people are getting screwed over by these people on welfare. That's the message. So they're basically promoting full-throatedly neoliberalism. Makes no sense whatsoever. It's absolutely idiotic. And a lot of these people promoting this, it's not their first case of like making a mistake and pandering to right, this, what I call this left-right alliance grift of what's going on. Again, it's necessary for people to get out of their echo chamber and to speak with people who aren't even on the left or political or whatever. And yeah, we got to win over people who are fooled by conservative and right-wing propaganda. But they're not doing that at all. They're not winning anyone over. When they just sit there on the sidelines and applaud this crap, why is anyone who's a conservative going to take any interest in anything they have to say? Because all they're doing is just on the sideline applauding. They got plenty of people who are already conservatives applauding this music and other right-wing stuff. Why are they going to take any interest in supposed communists who are just basically an appendage to the right? No reason whatsoever. The way you win these people over is you give credence to the aspects of, you know, like for instance with this song, yes, it does talk about working class suffering, but then you point out where it's wrong and you give an analysis that's counter to it, which is going to make sense to them, because if they are poor, if they are working class, they may be on welfare themselves. They probably know people are on welfare. They probably have relatives who are on welfare. So it's going to make sense to them. And when you're just opportunistically tailing whatever the hell the right says and putting a red label on it, you're not winning anyone over. You're not getting out of the echo chamber. And these people, they like to get on their high horse and talk about how they're so serious. And anyone who criticizes these positions that they take are engaging in quote unquote, you know, purity and all this being dogmatic or whatever. But yeah, I think another aspect to this is that a lot of these people promoting this, unlike yourself, they know nothing about country music. They have no experience in this stuff. So they see this and they see this Southern white guy who sort of fits their archetype of the type of person they're trying to win over, because they don't know many people like that. It's like this archetype that they're going for. And they get very excited and they try and tail after these people. But you yourself, you are in the South. You're very familiar with country music. You deal with people like this all the time. And you're this sort of stuff isn't new to you. You deal with this all the time. And these people, they're very much divorced from this type of stuff. And I think that's kind of why, part of the reason why they fall for this stuff is because they're so divorced from this. Like you mentioned, a lot of them are academics. They're surrounded by liberals. So they sort of have this, I think, this knee-jerk reaction to seeing anything like this, where they try and get behind it because it's, I guess, sort of a breath of fresh air compared to what they're used to.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Like a lot of these academics said, oh, or they're saying, oh, country music is horrible now because the only thing they know about country music is pop country. But I've been following local artists, independent artists, underground artists. I mean, we got thousands of country music people with soul that describe the realities of our class. And there'll be them and a drummer, them a guitar and a drummer playing at a barbecue place in a small town, got a regular working class job. I know this dude, I'm going to give a shout out to Ziggy Pockets, who is actually from West Virginia. And he grew up hard in hard poverty up in the hills, and he noticed the opioid crisis. And he sings songs like God Bless West Virginia that just from the heart describes the pain and anguish that the people go through in a beautiful way that, that's relatable. But he didn't put a line about welfare in it. And he didn't put a line that's, basically dog whistling the Confederacy and his song. And he didn't get shared by right wingers. And he's still going to keep playing those same few dive bars and barbecue joints until he expires or can't play no more. And there's thousands of them. So there's a movement. There's an insurgence in progressive and working class country music that's going on. But you got to go off. You got to get outside the radio. You got to go out in community, and you got to go and talk with the people. And you got to see what's there, and you'll see the good, and you'll see the bad. And I think you really got to love the people and lift up the people, and that's just how it is. And I think I got to tell I think this, the infracell, the right opportunist, is the same side of the coin as the so-called rad lib, superficial, kind of liberal leaning, but uses like aesthetics of socialism. I think it's very similar. They're two sides of the same coin. And the main thing they're not doing is getting to the people. They want to look good on YouTube. They want to cater to a group that gets money for Patreons, but that's not where communists get their power, and that's not how we change things. And there's this whole other idea about, socialists aren't going to get the power by coming up with the right slogans or coming up with the right way to say speeches. I mean, it's the same thing liberal leaning activists, so totally social activists have been doing for years. They go to democratically ran protest. They go there. I support the democratically ran protest, but I'm a communist. And it never worked. And now we got people, oh, I support this reactionary song with some positive class understanding, and I'm a communist. Like me, no. The only way the communists are going to get support from the people is to offer the people something. And you got to offer the people something. You got to unleash their own power, and you got to organize. That's the only way we can win the people to us, is to organize. You're not going to get pandering left or right. Ain't going to do it. You got to be real left, and that's class struggle left.
That's right. And you got to give a counter message. You have to give your own message. You can't just, and that's great. You brought up, sort of like the liberal pandering to the Democrats of these liberal supposed leftists. They pander to the Democrats. They never win over huge crowds to their whatever party or group they represent, despite their pandering to the Democrats, because they're not giving a counter message, really. They're just pandering, and they're just basically bringing more sand to the beach at that point. And that's what these right opportunists of various shades, I like to call it the left-right alliance grift, because it's basically they claim to be on the left and they're pandering to the right as a grift. They're basically like a left-wing token for the right wing to use at this point in a lot of cases. This case is a little bit different because, it's a song, and I think it's more so that they're using this song for their own clout. And I think part of the reason why some of these people have been like really swallowing this thing whole and really just, going crazy trying to support and endorse this song. And like, I mean, it's amazing to call this song a revolutionary anthem and not take any issue with it whatsoever. I mean, okay, it's one thing if you say, okay, it's largely positive, there's some issues with it, but overall it's good. That's one thing. I don't agree with that because I think there's an agenda behind it. But that's one thing if you're willing to like face reality somewhat and say, okay, I don't agree with everything. But these people, they're like full-throatedly endorsing it, no problem whatsoever. This is like the New International, you know. um, they're doing this, I think, because they want to get attention from the person that wrote it or other people on the right. They want to score an interview with this guy, so that they get more views and more clicks. That's all it's about. More views, more clicks, more money. That's what it's about. And they think by being like a loud leftist in support of something right wing, they'll get these people's attention. Like, oh, this is interesting. This, because it'll stand out. Why is someone claiming to be a communist being so vehemently supportive of this? It'll get their attention, and they'll agree to do an interview with them so they could get more views, more clicks, more money. I think that's what it's about. It's a grift, and it's not going to work. I mean, yeah, maybe it'll get them more views and more money and stuff. But as far as actually winning people over, it's not going to work, because we've seen this done. Too many examples to count with people doing this with the Democrats and the liberals, and it never works. All it does is it dilutes whatever socialism means. It doesn't lead to winning over people, because what you need to do is you need to get out of the bubble and reach these people, yes, absolutely, but with a counter message, with class politics, with anti-imperialism. And yes, of course, you don't reach out to them by like shrieking at them like these liberals, like, you're racist, you know, attacking them. Obviously not. That's not what we're talking about. You go to them, you acknowledge the working class aspects of it, but then you explain why it's incorrect and it's actually not in the interests of the working class, and why it's pushing a negative agenda. And, you know, these people, I would really like to see them, these supposed communists, I would really like to see them try and formulate an argument as to why people on welfare are the problem. I'd really like to see that, because they, at this point, they're like fully endorsing and trying to ignore these aspects. But it would really be something to see someone claim to be a communist endorsing or explaining why people on welfare are the problem. You know, this song, again, it does talk about, you know, how people work their whole life and throwing their life away for crap pay. But it doesn't lay the blame at the system. It lays the blame at the government and people on welfare, and the government taxing people. You know, this is standard libertarianism, and libertarianism is neoliberalism. That's what it is. A lot of people think neoliberalism is like AOC or some woke thing within the Democrats. No, neoliberalism is the ideology of Ayn Rand, Milton Friedman, and what was pushed forward by Ronald Reagan and Clinton. That's what neoliberalism is. And one of their big aspects of that was attacking welfare, attacking unions, cutting taxes for the rich. That's what it's about. That's neoliberalism. And again, this song is so working class. Where's the mention of unions? When right now in this country, there's a huge potential upsurge with auto workers to go on strike. Where's the connection to that? It's totally disconnected from any actual working class struggle going on in this country. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's just window dressing. It's just using the working class as an aesthetic to push forward a reactionary anti-working class agenda. And another thing about this song, and I'd be curious to get your opinion on this as someone in the South, is the neo-confederate aspect. We haven't really touched on that. You know, the title of it is Richmond, north of Richmond. So there are no rich people. There are no people in the ruling class in the South. It's all just Northerners who are the elites. No, obviously not. There are plenty of people in the ruling class. There are plenty of ruling class elites who are from the South. But of course, this song is deliberately trying to play into this neo-confederate nonsense. And it's interesting that they mention Richmond, of all places, which was the capital of the Confederacy. I think it's pretty obvious what's going on here. And as someone in the South who's very familiar with this, what are your thoughts on this?
Um, yeah, I mean the myth of the lost cause has been pushed on the working class people in the South for over 150 years. The Daughters of the Confederacy wrote the textbooks in the school system up until the 70s in many of the counties around here. And if you go up just north of here in Danville, Danville was the last capital. The capital of the Confederacy was Richmond, but the last capital before they fell, before where they refused to fall down, where they even were more staunch than Lee himself, was Danville, Virginia. And they got a big old Confederate billboard saying this is the last capital of the Confederacy. And if you look at that area of Virginia, I think he's about 2 hours kind of northeast between Richmond and Danville. And if you look at that rural area of Virginia, it is a hotbed for neo-Confederate ideology. Now, whether he did it knowingly or unknowingly, or simply neo-Confederate ideology is such part of the vocabulary, whether he did it knowingly or unknowingly, or simply it was just expressing his own prejudices that have been instilled upon him, it is a neo-Confederate dog whistle. And I'm tired of people gaslighting and denying this reality, because the actual blatant racist neo-Confederates knew exactly what he meant and hit the ground running, telling people what he meant, and used this song as a recruitment tool in our neighborhoods, in our communities. Parasites, people, that are lost, that just want to see destruction, just want to see us fight amongst each other. And he gave them fuel to do it with. And I think you can say, oh, he might not have known about it. You could say the propaganda was forced down his throat. All that might be true, but we got to understand the dangers of this. We can't gaslight people because you think it's going to alienate people if you criticize this. You're not going to win people over by not by denying and gaslighting the flaws and the realities within the working class. We got to lift up the good in people, but also address the bad that's been imposed on us by this capitalist, racist, imperialist society.
Yeah, and going back to what you mentioned earlier about how you actually reached out to the artist and you messaged him, that's very important, because these grifters who claim to be communists, anti-imperialists, who are full-throatedly endorsing this song, they love to use all the right-wing buzzwords. They try to fit as many right-wing buzzwords as they can into their tweets about this. And their favorite thing to say now is, it's canceling. You're trying to cancel us if we support the song. Or, oh, you're trying to cancel the artist. But no, that's not at all what it is. You actually reached out to the artist. I mean, as you said, he gets so many messages, he might not see it. But we're not trying to cancel it or say that he is some KKK member or something like that. The way ideology works is, in many ways, it's subconscious. These things are done through the media, through textbooks, as you mentioned, in the South, through music, such as this song, through movies, TV shows. Ideology works in a way that is usually subconscious. It's done in a way so that people don't know what the real agenda is. So we're not saying that he's some evil person with some evil agenda, but there's a reason why this song went so viral. People with an agenda did push it and did make it go viral for a reason. And it was very much astroturf, because people with an agenda pushed it. And it's not about him as an artist. He probably didn't necessarily realize, or maybe he did, I don't know, but it's not really even necessarily relevant. And it's not about canceling him at all. If anything, the best case scenario would be for him to look at this and say, you know what? These are some good points. And if he is working class, I mean, you mentioned some of his background. You know his background better than I do. Maybe he, if he thinks about it, maybe he has some friends who are on welfare. Maybe he knows people in his life or has relatives who are on welfare. And he'll realize that it's not people on welfare who are the problem. It's this term, this buzzword that people like to throw around, the elites. It's the elites that are the problem. And the elites are the ruling class. And the ruling class exists in southern states, not just northern states. And it's not just the government. The government is basically the fall guy or the tool of the ruling class. The ruling class is the capitalists, the people who own the corporations, the bankers, and so on. And the ruling class the government is just the tool of the ruling class. So I think that's very important to emphasize, is that this isn't about canceling or anything like that. And these grifters online who claim to be communists or are full-throatedly endorsing this song, their whole attempt to create a straw man and say, oh, you're trying to cancel us, you're trying to cancel this song, you're trying to cancel the artist and everything. Nope, it's very clearly that's not what this is about. What this is about is pointing out the actual nature and the actual politics of the song, and not just pretending like it is something that it isn't. And again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of these people are totally disconnected from anyone in the South or people in rural areas. So they have this archetype of who it is that they view as the working class man. And I'm curious if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I look online and you got these people with this vision of the worker being, or the Southern worker being all Trump supporters, or being this 1940s image straight off a Soviet poster, when the reality is there's gay workers, there's blue-haired workers, there's hippie workers. The working class is extremely diverse culturally, ideology. And what cuts through all of that, those cultural battles, is class consciousness. And another part about this, people act like, oh, that's the real working class. And then they start, the real fucked up part is they start demonizing gay folks. They start demonizing black nationalists and Chicano nationalists as if they're the problem, when they have been some of the most revolutionary and resistance groups. Some of these oppressed groups have been some of the ones most resisting it. And they also like to say that, oh, only liberals are offended by this. There's working people that are pissed that this dude is attacking welfare. There's oppressed people that are pissed over this song. And when you go out and say this is the best song in the world, this is a revolutionary, you're alienating your section from a section of the working class. You don't understand the working class. You don't understand how beautiful and complex and diverse the working class is. And you're either immature or you're being conned by someone who's getting paid with views and fan and what have you. And I think what's got to cut through that is the organizing. You got to have something to offer. Like, you can come to someone who's socially liberal or socially conservative. But if you tell them this is how you're being exploited and this is what we're going to do about it, and then you carry out action that improve their lives, the people are going to come to you, regardless of which side you try to pander to.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. And these people, I think it's because, again, they're so disconnected from actual working class, especially working class in your area, or, in the South or in rural areas. I think they're so disconnected. And they themselves, in most cases, are academics or, I don't know, people who make a living off of YouTube. They've never actually had a real job in their life. Certainly not any labor-intensive, difficult job that they like to they constantly like to pretend that they support workers in those fields. They have no experience, no background in anything like that whatsoever. They're totally detached. So yeah, I think they view the working class as an aesthetic. It's just an aesthetic, really. They want to see like some white working class guy from the South in overalls, and it's like, oh, that's the real working class, because they have no connection to these people. They have no connection to the working class. It's just an aesthetic, and they don't realize that what makes someone member of the working class is not about who they vote for. It's not about their skin color. It's not about their hair color, if they have their hair dyed or not. I mean, who gives a damn about this stuff? It's their relations to the means of production. And as you said, I mean, the most ridiculous and outrageous aspect of it is when they try to attack sections of the working class and say they aren't real workers, which is hilarious because most of these people aren't working class themselves, or at least they haven't had a real job in their whole life. They make a living off of YouTube, grifting off of YouTube, and taking people's money on Patreon. That's how they make a living. So it's hilarious that they want to attack anyone.
I want to thank you, Flame of Liberation, for having me on. It was a great opportunity to talk with you, brother, and hopefully folks can get something out of this, and they can reach out to me on Twitter at DustJames90 if they want to talk more about it.
Excellent. Great to have you on. And I'll just say to these people who pander to all this stuff, stop selling out, stop being a grifter, actually push working class, socialist, communist, anti-imperialist politics. Don't just swallow whole what the right wing pushes.